A very big hello to everyone. I would first of all like to thank PLE and the Desai Foundation for giving me yet another opportunity to address a crowd of students as well as professionals. COVID and its impact on leases. For this purpose, I have divided this session into three parts. We shall first discuss the Indian Contract Act, thereafter the Transfer of Property Act, and finally leases. Now, the Indian Contract Act places a very high degree of sanctity on contracts. Parties cannot walk in and out of their bargains. Contractual obligations have to be performed by the parties. After all, a man's word is his bond. So section 37 of the Indian Contract Act specifically states that each promiser must perform his part of the bargain. And naturally so. Let's take a simple example of a bicycle manufacturer. The chain in a bicycle is typically sourced from a chain manufacturer. If the chain manufacturer does not deliver the chains on time, the bicycle manufacturer's entire stock is held up. His factory can shut down. I personally know of an instance where, now this instance goes way back to 1960s. What happened in the 1960s to this particular gentleman, he had to deliver a particular equipment costing 700 rupees to his customers. But the law at that time required the equipment to be labeled with a 10 paisa label. The person who was supposed to supply the label did supply the label. His entire consignment was held up. Therefore, the courts don't look kindly upon such flagrant breach of contracts. However, there are instances now where a non-performance of a contract may not amount to breach of a contract. And what are these instances? Force majeure is one such instance. Let's take a simple example. Let's assume that the two of us had entered into a contract. I was supposed to deliver refrigerators to you, and suddenly, just like that, the day on which I was supposed to deliver the refrigerator to you, the government announced a complete lockdown. Can you sue me for damages? Can you sue me for loss? Can you sue me for mental agony for non-delivery of the refrigerator? Obviously not. It was a force majeure event. It was simply impossible for me to deliver the refrigerator to you on, say, 15th of March. These are instances when the act itself becomes impossible and the object of the contract cannot be achieved. The supervening event. What does force majeure mean? Force majeure means an event which is beyond the control of the parties, which is so great. It's an act of God, which is so great that it crushes everything that comes in its way. And the COVID outbreak is an example of one such event. What are typically fires, typhoons, cyclones? All of them are considered to be force majeure event. But it is not the case that every force majeure event can be excused. The force majeure event must be such that it must directly affect the performance of the obligation. So instead of 15th March, let's say I was supposed to deliver the refrigerator to you on somewhere in Feb when there was no COVID. And eventually, by the time you sued me, by the time you decided enough is enough, I need to get my monies back, the government had announced the lockdown. Obviously, something that happened in March, something that happened in April could not have impeded the performance of a contract in February or January or December last year for that matter. Now, where is it in contract? So typically, every time a party relies upon a force majeure as an excuse to wiggle out of his contractual obligations, he invariably invokes Section 56 of the Indian Contract Act. What does Section 56 of the Indian Contract Act say? It effectively incorporates the doctrine of frustration of contract. Section 57 simply states that if an act has become impossible, then the agreement falls through. A very good example of such an instance is given in the act itself. A singer entered into a contract with a theatre owner for a duration of 1 year, for which she was paid in advance. All she had to do is perform at his theatres, give singing performances at his theatre for a period of 1 year. But there were weeks during which she was unwell and simply could not sing. And for that period, she had to reimburse the payment that she had received. Now we move on to the Transfer of Property Act and leases. As we all know, Contract Act is a general act. It governs all contracts under the sun. But the Transfer of Property Act is a specific act, and Chapter 5 of the Transfer of Property Act entirely deals with the issue of leases. It is for this reason the court has, when I say the court, the Supreme Court has held that the Indian Contract Act, including Section 57, which deals with the doctrine of frustration of contracts, is not applicable to leases. The two landmark judgments which I would request the students to look up are Raja Dhruv Dev Chand versus Raja Mohinder Singh and Shushila Devi versus Hari Singh. Now, what happened in these instances? In both the facts of the case, in both the instances are nearly identical. There was a there's an agricultural plot of land taken on lease in Pakistan. This was 1947. Suddenly, India was partitioned into India and Pakistan, and the lessees could not cultivate the land, as both the lessees had to come to India. In one instance, a proper lease was executed by the owner of the land in favor of the lessee. So the lessee sued the owner for recovery of payments made by him prior to the partition at the time of execution and registration of the lease deed. The Supreme Court held that Section 57, which regarding frustration of contracts, is not applicable in this instance, as a lease is not an executory contract, it's a completed transfer. There was no, the owner had done what it could possibly do as far as his bargain was concerned, and therefore the Section 57, therefore the entire Contract Act was ousted from the applicability to leases. Now, in the second instance, no lease deeds were registered. So it was a similar case, however, no lease deed was registered in favor of the lessee. The parties, the owner had a mere sort of understanding with the lessee regarding the lease of the agricultural land in favor of the lessee. Now, the court held that since the transfer was pending, even and we all know that a lease cannot be effected without a duly executed, attested and registered document. And in view of the pending formalities, there was no contract, there was no completed conveyance. The Supreme Court ordered the owner to refund all the monies received by it from the lessee of the agricultural plot of land. The rationale is quite simple. If a transfer is completed, it cannot be reversed. And it is for this reason that Section 56 of the Indian Contract Act incorporates doctrine of frustration of contracts is inapplicable to leases. So does that mean that a lessee has absolutely no option? Does that mean that a lessee has to live with circumstances which are really excessive? No. And why not? It is because the Transfer of Property Act itself provides a way out. Section 108E of the Transfer of Property Act clearly specifies the instances in which a lessee can exit from the lease. And what are these instances? Well, I shall not read out the section, the relevant section to you. I shall submit the sections as well as these case laws mentioned during the session to PLEE, and I'm sure PLEE will be more than glad to forward these sections to you. Now, what does 108E state? It simply states that if on account of fire, flood, typhoon, or irresistible force, the leased property has been substantially, completely, or permanently destroyed, the lessee has the option to void the lease. So there are 2-3 things that we need to take note of here. Firstly, the property should be destroyed on account of either a fire, flood, typhoon, violence of an army, mob, or an irresistible force. Now, this is as close as any statute can get to the concept of force majeure. We call it force majeure. The words chosen by the Transfer of Property Act are irresistible force. But the force should be such that the entire property is destroyed. The leased property is so destroyed that it just cannot be put to any use, or at least put to the use intended by the lessee. Secondly, it is for the lessee to decide whether he wants to stick it out or enough is enough. I'm going to walk out of this project. I'm going to surrender my lease to the owner of the property. What happens is we have seen a lot of litigation arising only from these premises, because expressions irresistible force is open to interpretation. So a very good example of what amounts to force majeure and what does not amount to force majeure is given by a Delhi High Court judgment called Airports Authority of India versus Hotel Leela Ventures. In this case, the Airports Authority had leased a piece of land to a hotel company. The hotel company was supposed to construct a hotel on the plot and run it for some time. The negotiated lease rent was in terms of a percentage of the projected revenue which the hotel company would earn from the constructed building. What happened in 2008 was a terrible year for the hospitality industry, especially the hospitality industry based in Mumbai. There were terrorist attacks. All the two major 5-star hotels in Mumbai were attacked by terrorists. Plus, the attacks occurred at a time when the hospitality industry was in deep global recession. So the lessee in this instance invoked the arbitration clause. On the grounds of commercial hardship, saying that commercially his entire project had become unviable. His lease rent was greater than the revenue that he was earning from, or he could have possibly expected from the hotel building. The Delhi High Court gave a beautiful judgment. It's a 62-page judgment. It was ultimately upheld by the Supreme Court of India and in 2018, and I would advise all the students to have a look at this particular judgment. Now, what the Delhi High Court held is, firstly, it's not a lease is not an ad hoc relationship. It's not a one-time relationship. The lease was for a period of 30 years. There were obviously instances of boom, instances of slowdown, and mere slowdown in the industry or one ad hoc incident cannot be ground enough for the lessee to resign the contract. What was the relief that the lessee was seeking in this case? The lessee sought deduction or remission in his negotiated lease rent. If at all the lease was so onerous for the lessee that it just simply could not live with it, the lessee should have just simply surrendered the lease to the lessor. You cannot appropriate and reprobate at the same time. And it is for this reason Supreme Court, the Delhi High Court held that that this particular instance did not merit. In this particular instance, no leniency should be shown towards the lessee. So the law of the land is, although floods, typhoons, epidemic diseases may amount to force majeure, but commercial hardship or commercial inconvenience, non-profitability, commercially, if the contract becomes more burdensome, these are not instances of force majeure. I would also like students to note that Section 108, the whole of Section 108 under the Transfer of Property Act, which talks about the rights and liabilities of a lessee, is subject to A, a contract to the contrary, B, any local or customary usage of the land. Now, a contract to the contrary, this is where the students need to be careful. It is for this reason, every time a party invokes the force majeure clause, typically all contracts and leases have a force majeure, a detailed force majeure clause incorporated by the parties. So if the force majeure clause is divided into two parts. First, it's not that each event should lead to severance of relationship between the lessor and the lessee. So typically, the parties first define what shall amount to a force majeure. Then they state that if because of the force majeure event, for example, the construction cannot be carried out or the leased property is closed, in that instance, the rent payable by the lessee to the lessor is suspended. The rent, along with these days, especially in mall properties, in commercial properties, the occupant has to pay a lease rent as well as common area maintenance charges. So usually the contracts clearly state that if in instances of force majeure, both can and as well as the lease rent shall stand suspended. However, if the force majeure event continues for a duration of 60 days, so 60 days is usually what the standard contracts currently in fashion state. So if the force majeure event continues for 60 to 90 days, then the parties have a right to terminate the contract. The lessor is bound to refund the security deposit to the lessee, and both of them are entitled to go their own separate ways. And it is for this reason drafting of contracts and interpretation of contracts becomes very important in the event of force majeure. Now, as we all know, in Mumbai, you don't have landlords or owners don't execute a lease deed in favor of the lessee or in favor of the occupant. They usually for malls and commercial properties, a leave and license agreement is executed in favor of the occupant. In case of service these days, co-working space is very popular. It's the new age concept of office premises. So an office provider executes a service office space agreement in favor of his occupant. Most restaurants operate on the basis of business conducting agreement. Now, all these types of agreements, what the court will really examine is first the letter and spirit of the contract, the duration of the relationship, the impact of force majeure event on the performance of the obligations of the parties, and as I said, it is a man's word is his bond. So the courts are they give a very strict interpretation to what amounts to a force majeure. Having said that, severance of relationship is never a solution. Nobody benefits from termination of a contract. These days, lessees and occupants spend a lot of money by way of fit-out costs, by way of once you start operating from a particular site, the operator over a period of time earns a certain level of goodwill attached to the site. So therefore, what I would suggest parties to do in these tough times is come together, sit across the negotiating table and come up with a viable solution, a win-win solution for everybody. Thank you.